What is up, fellow sickos? I'm Dan Favale coming at you with another 2025-2026 NBA season look ahead. We're on to the Oklahoma City Thunder. You may have heard of them. They just won something. I can't remember what it was, but I think we'll talk about it. Which means I get the distinct pleasure to talk with some members of the uncontested crew. This year, we have Taylor Peterson making his triumphant return. I think this is year 4.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's been a long time in the works. We're excited to have you back on the pod as well. Maybe get Grant in. But we always appreciate you guys having us on. Obviously, it's kind of crazy to think back exactly a year ago, Dan, when we were Jacob Niffen and I were on this podcast. Just, all the excitement, what can be for the Thunder, but I don't think any of us thought we'd be here a year later talking about a championship team.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people thought that we would be here.
Yeah, some of us thought it.
But anyway, follow Taylor on the social machines at Taylor_15. Taylor is spelled TAYLER_15. And making his HardwoodKnocks debut. So it's not his fault yet. Taylor, it's like he's doing this on purpose. He knows what he's in for. But we have JD Silva for the first time ever. Follow him on the socials at JD Silva_. That's at JD SILVA_. Welcome, JD. How the heck are we? Just met for the met in quotes.
We did.
Quarters remotely for the first time off air. You seem fantastic just because we align with a lot of what Chet is doing, apparently. How are you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm getting ramped up for this season. We're kind of doing a bunch of previews on our side in this same way to kind of get the wheels turning, get back into the swing of like thinking about basketball, and being on here is awesome. I wanted to be on last year, but there's so many of us. We're all fighting for supremacy.
I know. Yeah, Justin.
I think it's just Justin now, though. Is that the only one I haven't
True.
met? Okay, that's
True.
exciting.
What our listeners don't know is that anytime we have an opportunity to go on and be a guest for a podcast, we actually fight each other, like with boxing gloves on. And whoever wins, they get to go on.
Comes out.
On
4 years in the making.
So Jacob just has a broken jaw, and Justin's
right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys scrapping and clawing because we obviously have a 2-guest max is what it was. So
yes,
I appreciate you.
That's why Nick hasn't been on yet. He just loses every time.
So, and I'll just remind live, because I'm terrible at reminding people beforehand, I'm not texting during the show. I'm timestamping. So if you see me looking down, I promise I'm listening.
I use it for my notes, so I feel you there.
I have to begin here, and I will start with you, Taylor. The Thunder, we know what they looked like on paper. I think they were a lot of people's titles pick last year. I don't even remember. I had them in the finals against Boston. Was there a moment, though, or was it before the season, but was there a moment last season that you point to, and it can be their season debut, where they just trucked Denver? But was there just a moment where you're like, no, this team is, wow, this is it. Like, this is the team.
Yeah, actually there is for me. And it's actually more of a period than a moment. But I mean, sure, like we obviously had a ton of excitement heading into the season. We knew that they were going to be in contention for the title. But it still just feels surreal afterwards, right? Getting to experience that for the first time. But I think the time for me, Silva, I'm curious your thoughts. It was that stretch during the holidays when our buddy Kerry came down and we got to go to a handful of games with him. And I believe we saw they beat the Knicks in that crazy Aaron Wiggins fourth quarter game.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Sorry. You're not a fan anymple you said. It's cool.
And you know what? If Aaron Wiggins goes off, it's allowed.
Yeah, that's fair. That's all good. He saved basketball, and he saved that fourth quarter. A couple of days later, they played the Boston Celtics at home and beat them on like a ABC 12 p.m. Central Time game. And I think during that stretch as well, it was like Minnesota or maybe it was Denver. I'm trying to remember. But they rattled off some really impressive wins, went on a really big win streak there. And just the way that they were winning games, Dan, just felt incredibly impressive. Like, this is sustainable, and we still don't have Chet yet. That's what we kept saying. It became an inside joke on the podcast. Our listeners, we'd say something, they go, but we don't even have Chet yet, So it was that stretch for me, I think, where I thought this really could happen.
Yeah.
What was it for you, JJ?
I was actually, that Boston game was going to be one I pointed out. Actually, I was at that game. That's where, to close it out, Chet like blocked Tatum on one end, threw it to Ihart, who threw it to someone else for an alley-oop to like close out the game. And it was just like, they started doing this thing that elite teams do where they flip a switch and kind of channel like what they're best at. And for them, it was the defense all year. Usually that involved deploying Alex Caruso for his 20 insane minutes every game. And it's like every team that wins a title needs to have some skill that puts them above the rest. And for the Thunder, it was
An extra gear
of defense that just makes it impossible for the other team to score. And yeah, that period was it. And in that period, especially without Chet there, like when Chet got hurt, we were all like, okay, at that time we were like, Chet's second best player. What are they going to do? Like, are they going to be fighting for a playing spot? We don't know. They're still the youngest team in the NBA. And then it just didn't matter. Like, it didn't matter. And they just kept winning and winning and winning. And yeah, it felt too good to be true the entire season, to be clear, until it happened, until I was at Game 7 watching them go up to the podium. Like, it always felt too good to be true because they're so young and it's just such a like outlier season in the NBA.
I don't think I had a moment for them, but the development was where they're just so injured and J-Dub is just guarding centers. And there was a point at the time last year, we talked about on this podcast, where he, among any rotation player in the league, like regular rotation player, was like contesting the largest percentage of opponent shots while on the floor. And Grant and I were talking, and I think the question he posed was, we might just be overthinking the championship race at this point. It was like fairly early. They were so banged up. It was just like, this doesn't fucking matter. Like, it just doesn't feel like it matters. So I am so interested to see what they do next year and what we're going to get into, because of just, we've had the 7 consecutive different champions, and this is the age of parity, and they feel like they're built to just crap all over the age of parity right now. But I want to ask you one more thing each about last year. I'll start with you this time, JD. What was like kind of the biggest takeaway, lesson learned, revelation, or whatever it is about last season that still kind of sticks with you, aside from, okay, they have the title banner, obviously?
There's a basketball one and there's a personal one. I guess I can go. I'll go with the basketball one. Is that good regular season 3-point shooting does not mean you're going to be a good playoff 3-point shooting team. It's more about, you have to be a good 3-point shooting team, and you have to have certain archetypes of 3-point shooters to like be good in the playoffs. And a lot of the Thunder guys, they shoot too slowly, I think. And that's something, like, they struggled from shooting from 3 all playoffs. And it was like the most frustrating thing in the world to watch, because it's like, they were good all season. Why is this happening now? Mm-hmm. One part was because J-Dub had a messed up wrist, which didn't know about it. That would have helped. But the rest of the guys, like Isaiah Joe, just vanished. And it's like, what happened to this team? So yeah, there's development still to be had there. You have to be able to shoot a certain type of way. That was my biggest basketball takeaway. Personal takeaway was that playoffs, when you're going that far in the playoffs, extremely stressful. I tweeted something along the lines of, everyone talks about like how cool it is to see like an all-time playoff series, but no one talks about how it is like being in hell when you're a fan of that team. And that happened with the Denver series and the Pacers series. All of Twitter was like, this is an all-time series. I love it. I can't wait to watch the next game. And I'm like, you sons of bitches.
We've been hyperventilating for 2 straight weeks.
Look, we're in hell. I apologize that your goal shoes were too tight. I know.
You guys. I know. I feel like I'm like a rich guy complaining about getting fined like Ballmer's about to, but it's tough. It was stressful in the moment.
Taylor, what about you?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway from this past season, and even just taking in like the entire championship run from the full-on rebuild until the championship this past season, is just the sustainability of what Sam Presti has built. And when we talk about that, when we talk about it on our show, you talk about Presti's system or style play, Mark Daignault's system and style play. You're talking about versatile players at each position, just like JW mentioned, being able to guard literal point guards all the way down to the center position. Alex Caruso, for example, defending down and guarding Jokic there in that game 7. Like it's players with high IQ, high feel for the game on the offensive side of the ball, but positional size, and then also obviously players who can defend as well. Like, for example, we talked about Aaron Wiggins, but there was times there, especially in the finals, where Mark Daignault had to pull him because he wasn't competing defensively. And so those are kind of the things we look at when we're talking about the kind of basketball that Sam and Mark want to play, the kind of team they want to construct, and what players potentially fit that style of play. Obviously, Alex Caruso and iHeart were great fits. The players that they've brought in through the draft, we're very curious to see how they fit into all that, which I know we'll get into. But the sustainability of what they built, just kind of, you mentioned they could keep doing this for years to come. That's what was so impressive, stood out the most to me.
And that's, Taylor, you touched on what I think is really interesting, is because after the extensions for Chet and J-Dub, it felt like there was a lot of, this team is going to have to break up eventually, and there will be pieces that they have to trade off. But we've poo-pooed over that idea a lot on this podcast. But from your perspective, what is like the biggest misconception about the Thunder's future together?
I mean, I could dive into stats here. We've done that, pull up the numbers. We've done all that on our podcast. I know you and Grant have as well, and I've done a really good job doing so. So I think just big picture for the sake of this podcast, it's incorrect. It's not true. Now, like, I think there was a comparison that it was like OKC Thunder stats, like a stats account, tweet out each team's roster, all the championship contenders or previous championship teams. And it's like, yeah, their 3 best players take up like 25% of the cap. This isn't anything new. But what's different about this Thunder team is the young pieces that they brought in already that can come in and contribute, like the Cason Wallaces. We talked about Aaron Wiggins, even if he's not quite as young. You have Nikola Topic coming back this season. We'll talk about Ajay Mitchell. Those are just examples, as well as one of the biggest treasure troves of draft picks in NBA history. And that allows for so much flexibility. So yes, like on paper, in theory, it'd be perfect to just be able to have J-Dub, Chet, and Shea on your roster, build around them, just keep bringing in new young guys that are on rookie scale contracts and keep contending for championships. But we know that's unlikely as well. And so even then, you trade away some of those young guys, bring in maybe another Alex Caruso or a veteran role player. You can still pay a guy like that because of the way this team's constructed and the flexibility that Sam has given this team with the player options, the way contracts are constructed, and just how he's built for the future.
The other thing too that I don't think people talk enough about is that if you're good enough, the second apron is not like it feels like it will function as a hard cap, and I won't push back against that. But like if it's just you're in it like 2 out of every 4 or 5 years, like that's the goal, to make sure that your first round draft pick isn't moved to the end of the draft. Like if you have go ahead.
That's a great point. No, it's a great point. And because our guy Jacob isn't here, and Silva, I'll let you go, but that made me think of what Jacob's been harping on our podcast, Silva. Who cares if the Thunder's own first round pick goes to the end? Because it's probably going to be there anyways, and they're going to have multiple first round picks for the foreseeable future. So that's not really a big deal. It just comes down to the luxury tax and owners wanting to pay that. But to your point, Dan, if you're only in it once or twice, every 4 or 5 seasons, it becomes much more manageable.
JD, did you have any standout surprises? We knew that Chet, J-Dub were going to get maxes. I guess there was some question about Chet. Even Shams had trouble getting the amount straight, as he always does, it seems like. Did anything stand out to you about like the extensions that they got? Specifically, maybe, Chet not having the language that J-Dub has in his.
Yeah, Presti is a guy that will take advantage of every little nook and cranny he possibly can within the CBA. And I'm not a CBA guy. Like Jacob and Nick are kind of who does, and Taylor do that. And I'm more of a vibes-based analysis guy, so I've never really dug in.
I love it. That's me in summer league.
He's our vibes guy.
Yeah. They shot 4% from threes, and you said they're a good shooter. I'm just going off vibes.
Yeah, it's the eye test, dude. It's the eye test.
But see how fun it was watching him shoot?
Fun. But I knew Presti's always spoken with confidence in terms of navigating the CBA, and I didn't know how he was going to do it until the details came out, and you saw. Like we all know, there is at this point in time, there is a separation between how good J-Dub is and how good Chet is. And I think the way he did it was like amazing. It's like Chet is only gonna get the regular max, and J-Dub has got the same thing with some opportunities to get higher. He deserves it. It sucks that he made All-NBA last season, but that doesn't count towards him getting this next one. Like he has to make All-NBA again.
Stupid. One of the stupidest rules.
Yes,
it's stupid. But no, I figured Presti would be creative, and this is awesome. It's like if J-Dub does hit all of those qualifiers, great. That means he's gotten even better than he is, and he's like a top 15 guy at that point. But no, it works. It'll work out. Everyone, like I've had moments of panic with like, oh God, is this only going to last for another 2 years? What's going to happen? I think the Thunder, I've read all the Bobby Marks videos. I've listened to all kinds of salary cap experts break it down, and the Thunder have a plethora of ways to navigate it. At some point, we'll have to say goodbye to players that we love. But that happens on every.
I get it.
Right. That happens to every championship contender that exists for a long period of time. Sean Livingston didn't stay on the Warriors forever. It's guys like that. Like you have to say goodbye to. So that'll be tough, but we enjoy them while they're here.
I also am surprised that when you look at how some of these teams this summer are operating on such thin margins where like trying to separate themselves from certain aprons, the fact that you don't have like player options in the J-Dub or Chet deals. So let's just say they're on the flat 25% max deals. You've saved yourself, like you're paying them 11 plus million less in the final year of their contracts than you could be if they were just free agents or had been able to extend. And the other thing there is if both of them, which is not impossible, are eligible to sign the larger maxes at that point, you've delayed $30+ million in expenses another year. And yes, that's just kicking the can. Kicking the can fucking matters. Like margins, I don't mean to bring up the Knicks about this, but they're like 3 cents under the second apron or whatever. That's not actually what it is. So like they're gonna have trouble filling out their roster. They can't sign 2 more veteran players. It's like those margins matter. And I think it was, I guess people could say, well, player options, they're not part of rookie extensions really anymore. And it's like, well, Paolo got one in Orlando. You tell me J-Dub wanted a player option, the Thunder aren't going to give it to him. I don't credit Sam Presti for negotiating it, but I also just look at it as a good harbinger of like the culture that they've built there, to where do I think J-Dub even tried to push, like he and his camp tried to push for a player option? Probably not. Like they might have, this just might have been presented and the compromise was, we'll give you the all NBA language and you don't get a player option. And like, that's a win-win for everybody, but I think it's just, it matters. And it's also, it doesn't matter just financially, just the emotional component of people. I think we're going to enter the era where people are going to start to get annoyed by the Thunder because now they're a title team. So those post-game interviews won't be as just like, cutesy to people, but like it matters that this team has that level of camaraderie from, it's not just like on the court, but it seems like really from top to bottom in the organization.
Absolutely. That's what you hear and have always heard ever since the Thunder came to OKC, Dan. It's literally from the top with Sam Presti to the janitor staff in the building. And that sounds funny, but there's actual stories about some of that. And like Sam has his hand on all these things. Everything is so structured. Like even the way they bring in people into like their sales department is a very similar process to how you see they treat their young players going through the NBA G League with OKC Blue and rising up with the Thunder, getting some playing time here, getting some playing time there, different positions. But I think you nailed the 2 biggest things here. One, and that Sam historically has never really given out player options on rookie extensions. That includes Shea, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. Obviously, the whole James Harden situation probably led to some of that, him being traded. Lots of reasons there, but historically has never given out that player option. The other thing is, like you said, doesn't matter. J-Dub, Chet, they could decline that, want to go into free agency here in another season or 2 or whatever, or force a trade out of OKC, and there's probably 25-ish other teams that would absolutely give each of them that player option, the full escalators when it comes to their bonuses for making the incentives. But they obviously are bought in and believe in what Sam Presti has built. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's the same way. And like you said, just shows they've truly built something special in OKC.
JD, I have an actual basketball question for you now, and it's the one that I think everyone wants to know. Why didn't the Thunder trade for Giannis this often? No,
oh my God! Hey, if they had lost, Thunder fans would have been going nuts for that probably.
Chet is still one of the most fascinating players in the league for me because relative to, what now he's extended for and what we've seen him do, the sample size just like isn't huge yet. And then also specifically at the start of last season, he looked like we were tracking towards is Chet more important to this team than Jalen Williams? Is Chet better than Jalen Williams long-term, however you wanted to frame it, which is a question I will pose to you guys in a second. But, like, what do you now, I guess, what were your impressions of him, like, at the start of last season, and then based off how he finished it post-injury and everything, and then what are you watching most closely for as he goes into quote-unquote year 4, but year 3, whatever you want to say?
Yeah, from rookie year to sophomore year, he was transformed. Like, at the beginning of last season, he looked much bigger, but also faster. He was just more decisive in like every part of his game. Sometimes he has a pretty deep offensive bag for a guy as weirdly built as him, but that sometimes means he's just sifting through that bag for too long and doesn't have like a go-to move. But everything he was doing last season was just more decisive. He was getting up threes faster, hitting some off the dribble as well. All that was there. He looked like an all-star. It was like, oh, there's our second all-star. Like it was just an obvious thing right away. He was amazing. But a guy built like Chet, he has to work really hard to get to that point. And he did, but then the hip injury happened and he just like mid-season, you can't regain all that strength you lost by being on your ass for, what was it, 2 months, Taylor? He couldn't walk. Like he could not walk for 2 months. So it's just, you lose all of that muscle through atrophy. And that player wasn't there anymore. And he's gone on like IG Live and talked about that recently and how he is now back to the point physically he thinks where he was at the beginning of last year. And I expect all those things to come back. He just needs to not get a freak injury. Like no one gets that injury he got last year. That's an injury you get from getting into a car accident. Like, and then the freak injury that derailed what would have been his rookie year. That's also just an insane freak accident. So I still have hope. Some people kind of that don't watch Chet as much were like, why is he getting a max contract? He was horrible in the finals. Like, well, because of the player that we know he can be when he is given the time to get healthy. And he was still amazing on defense, even through it's the offensive ceiling that is so reliant upon his like physicality and being in shape and health. Yes,
that's fair.
Also,
Very
if we paid players based off one playoff series, I don't know what James Harden would have made throughout.
Oh my god! Yeah.
Yep.
Taylor, what's like the one, I guess, developmental arena that you're going to be tracking with him most closely? Is it just we want more 3-point volume? Is it like getting to more of those pull-ups just because he's so tall and being able to like rise and fire over those guys? Is it something else? What are you looking for?
So I'll give you an honorable mention. I'll give you my answer. Honorable mention is the 3-point shot. Like Silva said, he was off to a great start before that hip injury against Golden State to start the season last year. Was hitting them at a higher clip. His shot had a little more arc there. His release was quicker. And a lot of that was because he had his legs under him. So when he came back post-injury, like Silva just talked about, you could just tell his legs were shot. He's still trying to get back into game shape, but also just doesn't have that strength. So if you look at a lot of his shot attempts in the finals and throughout the playoffs, a lot of them are kind of like line drives. I think he even had like a brick. I'm trying to remember what series that was, but it was just way off, right?
Yeah.
So honorable mention to the 3-point shot, but I think something that we've talked about with Chet, Silva mentioned getting to watch him. We talked pre-podcast, pre-recording about getting to go and watch him in Summer League his rookie year before that injury against LeBron in the Pro-Am. And one thing that stood out to us then that is still true today is he does struggle handling the ball. And that means getting downhill to the basket. That means distributing, but he's also a player. And again, talk so much about pressing ball, but the type of player you want to have the ball in his hands, let him just rip it off the rim, start pushing the ball in transition. You also want him attacking the rim at the top of the key when he gets the ball in his hands. And so what you've seen opposing teams and coaches go to is putting a smaller guard defender on him that allows them to be able to pick his dribble, right? Results in steals and turnovers. But during that same stretch where his 3-point shot also looked better, his handle was as well. And the strength that he was going to the rim, getting to the free throw line was significantly improved. So the hope is after this offseason of full health, he'll get back to that level and be able to continue to improve at it. But I think for me, that's the next big step in Chet's next evolution in Chet's offensive game.
Yeah, I think you have to be right, just because like even the pump and go stuff that he would be able to do, if the handle's better and just the chaos, you don't even need a great handle as part of the Thunder's offense because the chaos that they'll be able to inflict on the defenses. But I also think like the getting to the rim element would be great, but I think he could leverage just his size and like, can he turn those pump and drives, but like he's pulling up in those drives, or it's like, can you even do like the Kristaps Porzingis thing where it's the standstill, pull up, catch and shoot? I don't need to see Chet on the block for 13, 14 possessions a game, but like I think that that's something he could probably lean a little bit more on. And I also wonder if like those are the types of shots that maybe would be easier on his body then, where if you are going to try and drive or roll and get all the way to the basket, like that is going to extract a physical toll. And he just, as JD said before, he's dealing with these freak injuries. I'm just trying to keep him out of harm's way as long as possible at this point.
Yep.
How worried, Taylor, are we about the J-Dub wrist issue? Just because it was to his shooting hand, was it not?
It was. And so, again, J-Dub, he does these YouTube vlogs that him and his like kind of inner circle put out. And because it was mentioned in Sam Presti's X8 interview, he went ahead and addressed it because he was getting so many questions about it. He was like, I wasn't going to say anything, but here's the deal. It happened in Phoenix late in the season, right before the playoffs. I had to start playing through it. It was brutal. I'm getting multiple shots each game that I can. I'm, numbing like all the different things. He's like going through different reps, trying to find the right thing. And he said, basically, like, thank goodness we swept Memphis because I needed that extra time with the training staff to readjust and relearn how to shoot the basketball. He was like, instead of like catch and shoot, like using your fingertips, like you usually do with your wrist positioned, he basically had to like use his arm to position his hand under the ball to be able to get enough arc and to be able to get a shot off. Just some crazy stuff like that. Dribbling with one hand. So it's incredible what he was able to do with one wrist. I'm not overly concerned though. It's an injury I think that he's already progressing through, going through his rehab. Even saw him like post a video of him already taking his cast or his wrap off or whatever. It will take some time, but he's got that time. So long as he stays healthy, I think he'll get right back into form. And based off what we saw those last couple of rounds of the playoffs, especially the finals, That is scary for the rest of the league if you have a J-Dub with two hands ready to go.
JD, what's the next step for Jalen Williams? And also, is he just going to come back and like just be a whiz with his left now? So that's just like, I don't like.
I have to think that him like still being very effective with only like 1.5 hands has to give him at least like some confidence that he can score in a number of different ways. That was kind of my biggest thing for J-Dub as a point of improvement, was like being a go-to scorer. That is like, if you're a star player, which he has become, you do have to be. It's like, if SGA is getting triple teamed, what can you do for us in this? Can you manufacture a bucket out of nowhere? That's kind of the stuff I still look for with him. And I was looking for it all last playoffs before I realized, oh yeah, he doesn't have one of his hands is numb and not working. So it was still amazing what he was able to accomplish, but that would be it for J-Dub. It's scoring off the dribble, taking more threes, especially. I was complaining all playoffs. Why aren't you taking more threes? Well, it makes sense. But yeah, he has all the talent in the world to be more of like the earlier Paul George shot archetype of guy, of like,
the jumbo wing.
Jumbo wing, like his shooting mechanics look amazing. Just take more. But he is more of a power player than Paul George ever has been. I think he's more in like the Jimmy Butler archetype, I think.
Well, and speaking of power, Silva, that's my biggest thing for J-Dub. We had the same exact conversation about Shai Gilgeous-Alexander here a couple seasons ago before the season on our show, and said for Shai to reach stardom, he's going to have to find a way to get to the free throw line. People are going to laugh at that as they're listening to this right now in hindsight, but that was the truth. And he did that next season and was in the MVP conversation for the first time. J-Dub has to be able to utilize that size. He has the ball handling ability in comparison to like Chet that we just talked about. He obviously has the power to get downhill. He's got to find a way to be able to draw contact, to get the calls, and be able to finish your contact to get to the free throw line.
I do. It just feels like if his pull-up jumper, and I think, what was he at, like 48% on pull-up twos last year? It feels like if his pull-up jumper could just be like a little more efficient, that there's just going to be some like really inflammatory talk about. And I mean, from beyond the arc too. I think he was at 30% on pull-up threes last year. If that's like a number where his effective field goal percentage is like in the mid 50s or higher than that, I feel like there's going to be a lot, and we've already had them on this podcast because Grant is like in love with J-Dub. They might have they might have the same alma mater, who knows? But that's like, it feels like we're very close to, is Jalen Williams a top 10 player type of talk, if that's something that he does. Which does kind of lead me to my next question, though, and I'll throw it to you first, Taylor. Will there ever be, like, is the debate between Chet and Jalen, is it already over? Is there room for it to continue? Is it one that even Thunder fans are going to like have, or is this what people like myself are going to talk about, where we have that 10,000-foot view of everything?
Well, I'll give you my Presty speak, my Thunder speak, just in case anybody's listening. They don't care internally, right? J-Dub and Chet, neither of them care. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander doesn't have a preference. Nobody on the roster, nobody on the coaching staff has a preference. It doesn't matter. Whoever has the ball, they trust to make the right decisions, to make the right plays on any given night. And sometimes that's going to be Chet Holmgren. Sometimes it's going to be SGA. Sometimes it's going to be J-Dub, or like we saw, I believe, Game 5 of the Minnesota Timberwolves series. Sometimes it's going to be all three. Internally, not a debate. Amongst Thunder fans, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some of that. Who do you prefer more? But it's all in good fun. But as national narratives do, and like we know with the big outlets, media outlets these days, those conversations are always going to happen. But I will say this, Grant's going to love me for this. I am on record on the Uncontested, I believe 2 summers ago now, saying that whenever the Thunder won their first championship with this era of the Thunder, Jalen Williams would be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's 1B on the team, like up there, tied for best player. What I failed to also predict was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander becoming one of the best players in the world. So I think there's still a pretty clear divide between number 1 and number 2 on the Thunder. But that being said, it's just incredible what J-Dub's been able to develop into. And just like you mentioned, with his shooting, his shot creation, it still wouldn't surprise me if he's the second best player long term for this era of the Thunder.
What about you, JD? Where are you at on that?
Yeah, we talked pre-pod about how much I love Chet, and there's just something so enticing about a player of his archetype, a 7-footer that can dribble, pass, shoot, be one of the best defenders in the NBA. Like, I think Chet is like a top 5 defender in the NBA. And if he could just channel the offense and continue to develop his Slenderman-esque body, that's where it's like yeah, he could be better than J-Dub. The ceiling is higher, but we've also seen that the floor is lower. J-Dub does feel like more of a sure thing at this point in time, and I think your average Thunder fan would say, yeah, J-Dub's second best guy, and we hope Chet can stay healthy. It's kind of the thing there. But I'm still fascinated by Chet personally.
As you should be. I would probably, I wouldn't probably. I lean towards J-Dub because I'm always going to gravitate towards people that have more control over the offense.
Yeah.
It's just something that, that's just what my eyes are attracted to, I guess. And then also, as you mentioned, the floor with Chet and the injuries, like that stuff can all get kind of bizarre. And there's room for him to improve as a passer, though. Too.
There is.
And he is. I think maybe the strongest argument for him is Chet's the bigger anomaly for what he is. Like J-Dub is okay. What he could do defensively is just, that stands out for someone who's 6'5", 6'6", whatever he is. But like Chet is a 7-footer who in theory on offense, like can just play like a wing or a guard.
Yeah. He's a more rare archetype of player. And that's going to be, that's the more fascinating player. J-Dub is like obviously amazing and has already made an All-NBA team and an All-Star team and an All-Defense team. But I've seen more J-Dubs throughout history than you have Chets.
What did you make of year one of the Isaiah Hartenstein experience? I
was so pleasantly surprised by Hartenstein. I was actually, I hadn't watched much of him before he got there. And I remember his first free throw line floater made me like jump. I was like, what the hell is that? Because he's a lefty and you don't see many lefty big, like no one else does that really, unless you're like Jokic. He's a very strange, fascinating player. He's like a combination of guys that we have loved throughout Thunder history. I always said he's like some combo of Nick Collison and Steven Adams in like a more modern version of that, which is amazing. Those are two like cult heroes in Thunder fandom. And I wish he and Chet had more time together because I think that could have been better. They really only played, how many games did they play together, Taylor? 20?
Yeah.
Was it that? I was about to say. Because one of my questions is, I was like, so are we going to get a chance, assuming they're healthy, together this year? Will we get a chance to see more interplay? I'm a sucker for big-to-big passing in general.
Absolutely. And we have two big who can feed off each other. I mean, we saw it start to flourish there in the playoffs as they got a little more comfortable with some of those big-to-big lobs, which are just so fun. You throw the ball down to iHeart in like the high post at the free throw line. You got Chet cutting back door. He throws a lob up between two defenders for an alley-oop. Like, it doesn't get more pretty than that.
Do you think that's going to become more of a like even during the non-Shea minutes is just where people were getting a lot of the stuff wrong? Like they took on the early season, it felt like the Thunder were struggling. They were so shorthanded without Shea on the floor offensively. But like as the season went on, like those numbers were progressively improved, and that's like I don't know how much they want to play Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein together when Shea's off the floor, but that feels like one of the valves they could have if you don't think you have anyone other than J-Dub on the roster who could help you shoulder some of the scoring and offensive generation.
No, absolutely. I do think we will definitely see more of that. It's kind of funny. We like had the big debate after, heading into the season about this time last year because they did bring in iHeart and they did bring in Caruso. It was like, what's the starting five going to be? We all took guesses and we were all wrong. And not only that, we talked so much about how Mark Daigneault always has his starting five. He doesn't really change it up much. And it was different throughout the entire season. But what we did see there towards the end of the season is the double bigs were who started. And obviously that led to some conversations during the playoffs. And they switched it up a little bit. But I know like Jacob, our guy Jacob, myself, we'd really like to see Cason Wallace slide in there potentially to a starting lineup. But knowing Mark, he might just go ahead and start them anyways and then try and stagger so you have one big at all times, depending on the lineup.
JD, I think when you look at, and I know this scale's too far ahead, but Isaiah Hartenstein's team option for 26-27 has been one of the examples used as, well, this is how the Thunder can help navigate like the quote-unquote financial crisis that might be coming for them. And while I do think like there could be something there, okay, decline a team option, try and get him back for cheaper, is he, I know you have Chet, I know you have big Jay Will there too, but like, is he really that expendable when you're looking at a lot of the things he does, especially when it comes to his presence on the glass, the physicality he brings up front, the way he can insulate Chet against some of those defenses? I just feel like people are kind of writing off the Thunder can just get rid of him and like that's how they're going to navigate some of this financial crunching.
Yeah, you make a really good point, and that has been kind of my biggest concern. Where, like you said, like we can avoid it by just declining the player option. And see you later, iHeart. We loved you while you were here. Don't need you anymore. It is more complicated than that, though. He is super, super valuable to the team. And that's why they spent, what was it, 15? Sorber was picked 15th, I believe.
Yeah.
That's why they picked him, because it's like he's going to be our next Hartenstein in 2 years. Well, maybe not. Maybe not. We'll see. But no, I mean, with Chet's history, you do need a different guy. It's the peanut butter and jelly scenario. iHeart's the peanut butter. Chet can be the jelly. And I love Will. Love him to death. But I don't know if he's a high minute backup center in that way. He works better as a third big, I think.
Agreed.
Let's talk Cason Wallace. I don't know if you guys have heard the latest Zach Lowe episode, and I was just shocked to hear this name come up. And to be fair, it was in the tier of players who he could see having an outside chance of doing this. Cason Wallace was a most improved player candidate for him.
Yeah.
Cool.
That just I assign a lot of value to opportunity when it comes to that award, and I just don't see Cason Wallace ever having, at least the way it's currently constructed, or unless catastrophe strikes in the form of injuries. But what is the actual next? I think it's easy to boil it down to a Cason Wallace just hit your corner threes again, and we're golden here. But Taylor, what are the next steps for him, or what is his ceiling within this core?
So I think you nailed that the biggest factor here is just the way that this team is constructed. It does make it difficult to not only find playing time for all these prospects, but also to get the ball in their hands. That's exactly Cason Wallace's next evolution, especially offensively. We know he's a great defender. We know he'll continue to improve. He's never going to be a J-Dub that can guard 1 through 5, but he's going to be a lockdown defender who can guard 1 through. Yeah, exactly. Not versatile enough. Sorry, Cason. But he's absolutely going to be a lockdown defender, maybe an elite perimeter defender who can guard 1 through 3. We know that's going to improve. Offensively, I think he's always going to be the guy who probably can be a little streaky from outside, but like you said, can always fit that 3-and-D role. But I think what the Thunder really see with him, and if you look back at his high school tape, and then you look back to that Kentucky season, his rookie year or his freshman year, where they had the injuries, so Cason was forced to play a little more point guard like he did growing up. That's the next evolution. And we saw a little bit of that down the latter part of the season, a little less in the playoffs, but him bringing the ball up and actually initiating, getting Shea freed up so that way he can come up and get the ball. I mean, you talked about it, Dan, but those second units, when you don't have Shea and you want Dub to be the primary scorer, and maybe he's taking on a little too much responsibility being the primary distributor with the ball in his hands, like having a player like a Cason Wallace or an Ajay Mitchell, which we're about to get into, who can step up and do that for this team is huge. So I think for me, that next step in Cason's evolution, I mean, we know he can get to the rim. He's explosive as well. It's going to be the ball handling. Now, to your point, can he get enough reps to really be able to take that leap this season?
JD, do you think he's able to get there when looking at, and I would agree with all the playmaking stuff Taylor said, do you think he can be, if he's going against a defense that's tilted or he's in transition, I have no question. But when you're looking at him trying to run a half-court offense, do you think that he has that in him? Is it still we haven't seen enough of that? I mean, he had some good moments in Summer League this year, but where do you see that level in him?
I don't know if I see the primary initiator stuff. He's always been in the Drew Holiday archetype of guard, where if he's your second guard out there doing the secondary playmaking, hell yes, we're feeling good. And I don't think he's going to be the primary ball handler guy. If he was able to do that, that's a player I worry about being able to afford, to be honest.
Yeah,
Because he can do so much other stuff. And I think the Thunder might also feel that way, and that's why they've added a couple of other guys that are really good off the dribble and really good at the playmaking aspects that I know we'll talk about later in this show. I love Cason Wallace. Amazing defender, amazing transition player, amazing just attacking closeouts. The shooting is streaky. Playmaking, I'm not totally sold on, and I think that's okay. That's okay. He can be, Caruso doesn't do that for us now. He could be an iteration of that. Lou Dort doesn't do that now, and he can be an iteration of that.
I feel like Lou Dort thinks he can do that, though.
He does. Oh, my God, he does.
That man has the utmost confidence.
Yeah.
JD, you mentioned being worried about if Cason Wallace does actually become his highest end outcome affording him. I think one of the things that really helps out the Thunder is at this point, Ajay Mitchell's going to pay them to play for the team for the next 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I also I'm going to do a victory lap for Taylor, Jacob, and myself. We did last year, Taylor, like 3 to 4 minutes on AJ Mitchell. I want to know what other national podcasts in the preseason did even 30 seconds on AJ Mitchell. Yeah,
Just
we did it. We did
Hardwood Knocks.
But
that's awesome.
JD, where are you at with like the AJ Mitchell experience? And I have to, every time I say his name, I just have to reiterate, for his injury, and I know the Thunder were banged up, he was in the rotation of what became the NBA champion. Like that was like insane. That's just insane.
He got playing time in game 1 of the NBA finals coming back from his injury. We were all like, wait, is that AJ?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like, he wasn't in the rotation the entire time, Taylor. So I'm just wondering if he's a bust and if they're better off trading him.
That's right.
So that's all I want to know. But JD, so where are you kind of at with your early impressions of him and like what you see for him as a ceiling or best fit long term with this team?
It feels a little silly because the Thunder it feels like they just keep finding these guys where most teams don't pick an AJ Mitchell when they're already as good as the Thunder. Because I'm very high on AJ Mitchell. Like, I think he's really good. I've made comparisons, and he is not this player in any way at this point in time, to be very clear. But
I'm excited.
Andrew Nembhard, I think they are similar archetypes of players.
Not ambitious enough. Go higher.
Oh, I know. I could go higher. But that's like the archetype I see him as, which down the road when Caruso and maybe a Dort aren't here anymore, if you have Cason and AJ, that's amazing. Like that's amazing. And this guy is on, part of navigating the salary cap and things of that nature. Something you don't think of that much is sometimes Presti gets players on scam contracts because AJ Mitchell is making like 2% of the cap over the next 3 years.
I don't even know if it's that.
It's bad. It's like 1.5 to 2% of the cap. And Aaron Wiggins, another guy on a scam contract, like he's making like $8 million a year over the next 3 years, I think, and
declining.
It's like God, he can make so much. He can make so much more. Isaiah Joe is another guy, but yeah, it's AJ Mitchell. I want to see a bunch of minutes from him, and it's tough because there's like 12 guys I want to see a bunch of minutes for. But he's awesome, and he showed it in summer league. He was in the too good for summer league camp, in my opinion.
He was. I did a redraft. I was a month into the season, and I had him as a lottery pick.
Yeah,
in my redraft.
That's awesome.
I caught so much shit, and that redraft looks awful now. You should see some of the stuff I got wrong. And I look back at that particular redraft. Right. I look at that, and I'm like, I don't know if number 11 was high enough for AJ Mitchell in that draft now or whatever.
He's awesome. And yeah, I've not heard hardly anyone talk about him on national podcasts. So you're on. It's just
funny because I don't even remember. We said something about, I forget what it was, but I just remember specifically that Taylor and Jacob were able to talk to me for a few minutes about AJ Mitchell, and it was just, that
I remember
that working out. That wasn't just us covering our bases.
I think we were excited after seeing him in summer league, and so you do what you always do and ask incredible questions. I think it was like, what guy are we not talking about? And we started rubbing our hands, and we were like, it's AJ Mitchell time.
Yeah.
Time to learn AJ Mitchell. Waiting for the Ousmane Dieng renaissance to start. You guys are like, well, let's talk about AJ Mitchell.
AJ Mitchell.
So these two guys, I think when you look at I think JD mentioned Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins just kind of in the same breath there. If you want to keep the top of this roster together, while Isaiah Joe and Aaron Wiggins are on these steal of a deals, that might also be where you start to cut ways with certain players. Is there anything that could happen this season or to start this season, Taylor, that accelerates that process in any way from the Thunder's perspective with one of those guys? One, who would it be most likely to? But like, two, what is that? Like, why are they doing that? Like, what happened with Cason Wallace and or AJ Mitchell that would compel them to do that? And for anyone listening, I'm only asking this question because if you're the Thunder and you're worried about, I lean more towards Isaiah Joe here, but like if you're worried about finding these guys minutes, you move them while they might still have value rather than if it's next offseason and they barely played, their value is going to have dropped.
Correct. And so I think the first step of that, I think was the first part of your question would be just like you mentioned, especially earlier in the season. And we see the Thunder do this all the time. This happened last year, Dan. I mean, Aaron Wiggins obviously played a critical role for the Thunder, especially in the latter part of the regular season and in the playoffs, as we saw. But there were so many times throughout the season us Thunder fans are sitting there, and even more casual Thunder fans who don't get to watch every single game are sitting there like, I just watched that Aaron Wiggins guy from Maryland drop like, he saved basketball or something. He dropped like 20-something points yesterday or 2 days ago, and he's not playing tonight. Well, the reason for that is because they wanted to see players like a Dylan Jones. May he rest in Washington.
Which is that's so funny because they traded the pick that was Dylan Jones only to reacquire it, only to then dump it a year later.
Exactly. To dump it a year later. Exactly. And they were targeting him 2 drafts ago before he decided to stay at Weber State and all kinds of stuff there. When Presti wants somebody, he'll go get him, just like we saw him maneuver up in the second round last year to go up and get Ajay Mitchell in the second. Anyway,
let's just end it there. We bookended it.
Yeah, there we go. Done.
Catch you guys next year.
And also, like you mentioned, Ouse got some early playing time last year as well, and that was at the expense of players like, Isaiah Joe still got playing time, but Wiggins and others. So that's going to be the first step. Do they trade a guy like Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins this year? Maybe if the right opportunity comes across. Presti's always opportunistic, but it's not something I don't think he's going to be searching for. I think when we're talking about Isaiah Joe and Wiggins not being on this roster or players of that caliber, we're talking more of like this time. Well, maybe not this time, but like early offseason next year. And second part of your question, the reasoning for that is guys like Cason Wallace and Ajay Mitchell stepping up like they have, and also just being able. That's some of the beauty of having 82 games in a season. Mm-hmm. Those games in January, especially when you have the great team that you do, maybe you're kind of securely in the like a top 4 seed in the West, and a random Tuesday night game in January, you can kind of see what you have in Nikola Topic, or you can kind of let Ajay Mitchell expand his role and completely run the second unit, or you can let Cason Wallace get some more reps on ball, like we talked about earlier. So that's kind of what I think how the Thunder envisioned these things and how it all kind of comes together. But to your point, does that result in Isaiah Joe or Wiggins being moved off at some point, or even them wanting a new opportunity elsewhere? It could.
Is there like a challenge though? I'll throw this one to JD, where it's like looking at Isaiah Joe specifically. They just proved that he doesn't have to play X amount of minutes for them to win the title. But he also, in theory, like who else is going to provide the type of offensive pressure that Isaiah Joe does for what he's able to do off the ball and just with his shooting? It doesn't feel like that guy's on the roster, and I don't see Ajay Mitchell or Cason Wallace becoming that guy.
Yeah, there's not another archetype of Isaiah Joe on the team at this point in time. Like Aaron Wiggins is the closest thing to that. So it does feel like in the playoffs, usually one of them would play, because you need one of those spark plug offensive guys. But when we saw it wasn't Isaiah Joe most of the playoffs, and I think that was for defensive reasons a lot of times. But he also couldn't make shots for some reason when he was in there.
Well, so a little inside baseball, I guess, that we can share on a national podcast. Isaiah Joe was also Jalen Williams was not the only player on the Thunder battling a wrist injury to his shooting hand. Now, nothing's come out after the season. To be fair, I don't think Sam even really planned until he was kind of fired up during his exit interview, talking to even bring up J-Dub's wrist injury.
Shocking. Sam Presti was going to withhold information.
Right. Exactly. And then he was fired up after the championship and wanted to. And look, there's been nothing announced. For all we know, Isaiah Joe hasn't had a procedure on that wrist or anything. In fact, he was at Shea's. He's up in Toronto right now. The Thunder are kind of doing their players-only mini camp during Shea's NBA basketball camp he's throwing up back home in Ontario, and didn't look like he had a splint or a wrap or anything on that wrist. But all that being said, I think he was battling an injury, which I think contributed to his poor shooting. But even then, he's not like an incredible lockdown defender. He tries very hard. He has good instincts. He just doesn't fit that archetype. And like Silva said, he's streaky. He's very streaky. You look at his overall shooting percentage. I did this earlier in the offseason on our podcast, but it's something great. Like it was something like 37-ish% on the season. Mm-hmm. But the majority of those would come. But it'd be game to game. He'd go 0 of 5 one game. The next night he goes 3 of 5. The next night maybe he goes 8 of 10, and then he'll have like a couple games of 0 of 5, 0 of 4. Just a very streaky shooter. He's either hot or cold. So
he's a bit of a luxury player for the Thunder at this point.
They have a handful of those.
You don't need to play him really. Like he is a guy just a innings eater kind of in the regular season. It's kind of how I see him. Like if you just need if you're trying to develop Cason Wallace's playmaking, it does help to have a guy like Isaiah Joe out there who can provide some spacing for you.
He'll screen too. That's why I like players like. But you're right. You're totally right about the streakiness. That's for sure. Taylor, you mentioned this before. I want to ask you guys about some of the other younger guys, but does it get harder or easier now that they're at this level to continue developing talent while remaining in the let's win a bunch of championships stage of their competitive life cycle?
That is an incredibly difficult question. That's a really good question. I think you could argue both sides probably. In some instances, like you said, the pressure's kind of off. You have these really good players in Shea and J-Dub and Chet. So that may allow you, like I said, a random game in January, February, whatever, the dog days of the NBA season, to let some of these guys kind of expand and grow and give them those reps. At the same time, it does become more difficult because as much as we want to talk about Chet, Shea, J-Dub being the next quote-unquote big three of the league, they're all super young also. That includes Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who could still improve, as crazy as that sounds. Obviously, J-Dub, we talked about his improvement. We talked about Chet's improvement to begin all this, right? There's other guys on this team who could kind of step into a starting role long-term for the Thunder because they continue to improve. You still have to invest in their internal development also, right? And so how do you balance all of that? And that's a challenge that Mark Daigneault and his coaching staff and Sam Presti have done so incredible at. We have to give them all the props, but to your point, it's only getting more difficult, it feels like to me.
JD, what are your early impressions of Nikola Topic? Healthy Nikola Topic, excuse me.
The highs are really high, but he does look like a guy who hasn't played basketball in like 2 years almost. So it's going to take some time. On the discussion Taylor was just having, like I think there are going to be shorter leashes on players in terms of giving them time to develop in this era of the Thunder, because guys on rookie contracts are going to have to contribute within those rookie contracts. With the way this team is constructed, J-Dub, SGA, Chet are going to be 85% of the cap basically moving forward. So those guys are going to have to perform. That's why you saw Dylan Jones get shipped out already after 1 year. I don't think they would bring in an Ousmane Dieng style of player again because Ousmane's in year 4, and we're still like, what's this guy going to be? But Topic, I don't think Topic is that level of prospect. I think his feel for the game is way higher. I think he is pretty strong already, but he does need reps. I wouldn't be shocked if he got a bunch of G League reps for the OKC Blue just to like give him minutes, get him out there.
And get the ball in his hands, like we've talked so much already today, Silva. Yeah. You're spot on. But, and when we say that, you often think of teams who just send a player down to the G League for a period of time, and then they bring him back up, see if they're ready, that kind of thing. I don't think that's going to be the case, and it hasn't been the case previously with some of these Thunder players. We're talking, that's the luxury of having, and this is why Sam Presti fought to keep the Blue playing in Paycom Center. This means Nikola Topic plays, 12 p.m., that day during the lunch hour with the OKC Blue, and then later that night still suited up with the OKC Thunder. That's kind of how they treat these things.
That happened a bunch last year with Dylan Jones and people like that. Mm-hmm.
Topic is fascinating though, because I guess the Thunder would have an opening to give someone more on-ball reps, but are you going to give them to a rookie? And so he's going to need to, like, if you want to see him have a role with the big club, like you mentioned the strength before, JD. He was like better defensively in summer league than I thought he was going to be. I'm just wondering, like, what would be his off-ball impact on offense if you're trying to put him anywhere, like game him anywhere within this current core? And that's what I struggle with. It's not a bad thing, like you said. They have the OKC Blue, like he will get plenty of action on the ball, but like that's not the role that he would necessarily have with this version of the Thunder, at least not anytime soon.
Yeah, I think it's going to be. I mean, before they traded Josh Giddey, they proposed Josh a bench role because they did value that type of player. And I think it's going to kind of be like that for Topic, where he's connective passing, drives and kickouts, shoot when you have it, when you have an opening. And I think he's going to be a better shooter in his career than Josh. I think that's going to be it. And it might look a little awkward at times. And then we'll have moments where he is, the 5 minutes here, be the on-ball guy. I think that will work. This is a deep cut player, but Vasilije Micic was a guy they had on the team season and a half ago.
Yep.
And his minutes with
EuroLeague MVP.
His minutes with J-Dub and Chet and Vasilije kind of being the main creator there were pretty sick. And I would like to see that type of thing again.
What are your early impressions of the injured Thomas Sorber, Taylor?
The impressions come purely from scouting. Obviously, our guy Nick is very big into the NBA draft space. I'm an NBA draft nerd, so I don't write about it like Nick does, but I still like to dive in early. So we watched Sorber. We actually were doing a bonus pod on our Patreon NBA draft. We like to kick things off like in the fall and just kind of give a preview what to look for the college basketball season and some targets to look at. And I mentioned some of the guys like Derek Queen at that point, some of the other center prospects that the Thunder could potentially be looking at, to your earlier question, Dan, to potentially be an iHeart replacement. And Nick looked at me, he said, dude, you got to check out Thomas Sorber from Georgetown. He is fun. And I did. And I watched him the next 2 weeks, and then he got hurt and didn't play again. But what you see from Sorber is obviously a very big physical specimen, especially for being as young as he is. He's only like 18 or 19 years old still. Very big, very powerful. Not the best rebounder necessarily or the quickest off his feet, but a great shot blocker, has good instincts in that regard. He's not going to be a big that can defend on the perimeter necessarily, but on the offensive side, another playmaking hub. He's a player who's able to make some pretty sick passes. He's good at getting offensive rebounds and getting putbacks. I think he would fit in very well kind of in that iHeart role, especially with like a second unit, but not quite as versatile probably or as much of a playmaker. I kind of buy his 3-point shot, although it was, if you look up his numbers last year, like it was terrible. Just the mechanics and the form, I think he can eventually develop that. And the other thing about Sorber, shout out Lou Dort. He's got that Lou Dort mentality. He's not afraid to pull the trigger, especially being a big like he is. So that's kind of like an overview of Sorber. That's kind of how I envision him. Like I said, almost like a poor man's iHeart to start his career. But Dan, you know this as much as we do. Multiple injuries, multiple lower body injuries for such a young big, it legitimately makes you concerned about his NBA career long term. And that's just the truth of the matter.
That's also why I know nothing. So because I don't really dive into anyone who's not like a top prospect until Summer League, and because he's not in Summer League then gets injured, zero priors of him. But when I see them take a big JD, I'm like, they have a lot of injuries up front. Like just looking at Chet's history, if Isaiah Hartenstein's ever dealing with anything, I'm like, that's someone who could technically actually play. Yeah, not anymore though. So like that's like kind of a bummer too. And so then when you stack on, as Taylor was saying, the lower body injuries, I guess that's definitely a red flag.
Yeah, it is. So you're gonna see more Jalen Williams this season. You're gonna see more Kenrich Williams at the 5, which is still crazy that they do that, and they're good at doing that.
Statue built yet? What's the status on that?
The plans are in place. It'll be a couple years from now. Yeah, and you might even see there's a guy we might talk about a bit later. I think it'd be cool if we saw him at the 5, but
Brooks
it's tough.
Barnhizer, I think.
It is actually
Brooksy Barnhizer,
dude. It is. I could see him playing some rant like 5 minutes at the 5 every once in a while. Yeah, it sucks for Sorber, dude. I was pumped because he's a really exciting style of player, and the Thunder, it feels like I feel good when Presti drafts somebody. He's had so many hits. I'm like, hell yeah, I could just be excited about this guy, and it'll probably go well. Yeah, I've seen more videos of Thomas Sorber dancing on TikTok than I have seen him playing basketball at this point.
I have seen zero Thomas Sorber dancing on TikTok videos.
There's plenty of them on there. Yeah.
It's not as big of a deal to this team, so I'm not trying to sound the alarm there, but when you're really trying to make sure that you can continue replenishing like the rotation with these younger guys, when you lose an entire year, like it increases the urgency with which you develop them when they come back, or like you just need to be prepared to make a decision on them after 2 years worth of samples rather than whether it's the G League or the NBA rather than an entire 3 years, because like that's the way the extension eligibilities work. But JD, how you feeling about Brooks Barnhizer? He was a Summer League favorite of mine. I'm not gonna lie, so no pressure to just throw a bunch of platitudes at him.
I saw some of the praise you and Grant were throwing at him. It's pretty good.
Damn it. He's pretty exciting. I hope he gets minutes. And I hope he studies at the altar of Kenrich Williams, because I think they could be similar archetypes of players long term. Brooks brings a physicality that the team still needs, because the Thunder are a pretty thin, more agile than powerful team top to bottom. And Brooks and Kenrich Williams, they can bring that necessary energy. I think he's going to play a lot in the G League. I said this about Ajay Mitchell, so I could be totally wrong. I don't know how many minutes he's actually going to get this season. But I like him. The shot needs a lot of work. That's kind of the big thing for him, but he's exciting.
He's just physical, and like Silva, you mentioned, he has the bulldog mentality. He's not afraid to muck it up on the defensive end of the floor. He's obviously not afraid to drive to the rim. He's explosive. We saw some big time dunks from him in Summer League, but the 3-point shot is a little brutal. So he's definitely a guy that you're going to see play with the OKC Blue quite a bit, the majority. But he's also a guy that probably is going to get a random game now and then where he has like 10 minutes off the bench, just depending on the opponent and the development plan that the coaching staff and the organization puts in place for each of these players. So it'll be fun to just watch his growth and improvement and see where he could potentially fit long term when we're at this point now, a year from now.
If you can trust him to hit a set 3-point shot, I will say some incandescent things about him.
Yes.
And even now it's just he's probably the rookie who's most likely to play fewer than 20 minutes, but still finish with 0 fouls and 5 steals or something like that.
Yeah.
So
that's a great.
I don't watch a lot of G League stuff, so I hope that he just gets some random run with the Thunder, because I'll go back and check that out. I think that's the one I didn't know. Again,
Silva and I will be texting you. Well, Jake,
good. I'm going to need the Brooks
Barnhizer alert. Yeah. Turn it over to League Pass.
I think he's going to be just someone that we look back, we meaning people who aren't in like the OKC, be like, fucking Thunder did it again. I really think that he's going to end up being that type of player.
They seem to have found an archetype of guy they like the chaos ball, can get you 3 steals in 2 minutes type of guy. We'll figure out the offense down the road, but if he can, Caruso was like, I know he's another white guy, but like, can you just study under Caruso and Kenrich Williams and do some of that when you come in? Like, that'd be amazing.
I was putting together my notes for this podcast, and I just didn't have anything on Shea. So I'm going to ask a question about Shea that has nothing to do with Shea. It still feels like there's room for improvement on this offense, where things can still get boggy. Sometimes when he's on the floor, a lot of the times when he's off. Taylor, what does that look like for this team next year? And I present that with the caveat of, like, some of the numbers without Shea by the end of last year were really offensively ended up being really, really good when you started mixing and matching the J-Dub, Chet, Isaiah Hartenstein of it all.
When Chet came back, things changed dramatically. We have a caliber of that, a player of that caliber to be able to insert back into that second lineup, and also being able to stagger 2 players and 2 bigs and Hart and Chet. That changed a lot. Also, I'm glad you mentioned that, Dan, because a lot of the times it felt like the player who was kind of being staggered. I mean, we saw some Chet, but Hart would come in with J-Dub in that second unit, and that provided, even though it wasn't at the point guard position, another facilitator on the floor to help free up J-Dub. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But like I mentioned with guys like, I don't know if Cason Wallace necessarily is going to be like lead point guard when J-Dub's in the game. They're going to have J-Dub bring the ball up. But Ajay Mitchell, for example, we've talked a lot about him. Like, that's just another ball handler to be able to bring the ball up, get J-Dub off ball, so that way you can free him up and allow him to score more easily. That in itself is going to improve the efficiency, obviously, of those second units or those non-shade minutes. And then just Chet improving offensively. Like you said, you have it here in the notes. Really, it's going to come down to internal development and then just finding the right fits and the right schemes, which we trust Mark to do. So I think the internal development of guys like the big dogs like Chet and J-Dub, but also the improvement of guys like we've talked about with Ajay Mitchell's and Cason Wallace's could really help those non-shade minutes.
JD, are we selling our Ousmane Dieng stock officially, or is he still on this team after the trade deadline? What happens here?
I sold my stock 2 years ago. Get me out of there. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets traded this season or they move on from him at some point. In Presti's end of season conference, he still seemed high on him. He was like, we knew it would take a long time for Ousmane. It's like, I'm tired of it. I hate watching him play.
Presti's also notorious for like doing those shout outs intentionally. And then I don't want to say a mind game, but it's like how he kind of views it as motivation to help like boost those kind of players, while also like when you have like Russell Westbrook, for example, sometimes like trying to bring him back down to earth a little bit because he already has that mentality. A guy like Ousmane Dieng, you really kind of have to fire up a little more. And I think that external encouragement, maybe it was a form of encouragement for him, Silva.
Yeah, I get frustrated watching players that it just seems like they're not trying hard enough. They're not playing with enough physicality. They're not buying in the same way everyone else is. And it just feels like it's like he's never jumping as high as he can or running as fast as he can or doing anything as hard as he can. So I'm like, get me out of here. I hate it.
I think that's kind of the consensus we've come to on the podcast with Oos. And to his, it's not a discredit to him as a person, or him not trying. He's a great character guy. Like, he's great in the locker room. It's like, it's not like he's out there not trying. He just, unfortunately, there's certain traits that can't just be learned. Physicality is a part of that, especially with a player of his size. Has to be more physical if he's going to be able to compete and be out there on both ends of the court. You see it in flashes. He's trying, but it just doesn't come natural to him. And unfortunately, he's not going to get playing time on the Thunder if he's unable to do that.
Me from 2023 is gutted. right now.
Yep.
Both of them.
Yep.
You were leading the Ousmane Dieng hype train.
Yeah, after his rookie season, I was still like, I was in on him in the draft, and I remember talking to you and Jacob Taylor after his rookie season. I was like, oh, like the Thunder did it again. Like, this is going to be someone who ends up being really good. I hope they trade him sooner. I just want to see what he would be like with more of an opportunity, because I still maintain that I agree with everything you guys said, and like the physicality with his size and the not really knowing what he could do if he doesn't, like, if he's not going to be able to shoot, like, I don't really know what he's going to be able to do. If you're not physical, you're not going to be trustworthy as a shooter, but there's like kind of some feel there sometimes, at least.
There is.
I think that's really
absolutely.
You can't teach that. Is that what the cliche says? So I just want to see him somewhere where he can just kind of play through the muck. And like, you can't do that in OKC right now because they have like 19 guys that all deserve minutes on this roster.
Yeah.
Are you two ready to enter the cookie cutter lightning round portion of the podcast?
Let's do it.
Hell yes.
Okay. So when you look at this roster, let's start with you, JD. What do you view as its single biggest need?
Shooting. I will say
Bingo.
shooting.
Ding, ding, ding.
I can't just have the lower volume, pretty good shooting in the regular season. I need more in the postseason because it dried up completely last year in the playoffs.
And they lost games because of it.
Yeah.
Who aside from Isaiah Joe is going to be best equipped to? Is this a J-Dub and Chet only situation? Or if you're looking at just supporting cast players, like who are you looking towards more than an Isaiah Joe to help kind of remedy that?
Yeah. It's got to be Chet. Like it kind of has to be Chet and J-Dub. Yes.
And so then you throw in, I mean, Lou Dort had a drastic improvement from three. Struggled some in the playoffs. Obviously has some huge threes that he made as well. But Lou Dort continuing his trajectory, even if he just is capped out now, being able to maintain what he did this past year. And then we talked about Cason Wallace, Dan, like you said. He had some really good stretches the past 2 seasons from three. He's going to have to find consistency. But if he does that, that's going to be a huge boost as well.
I'm just saying, I think they should run Barnhizer off pin downs, and that's
just over and over.
Taylor, what's something, insofar as there can be anything, about this team that's storyline, strength, weakness, concern, whatever, that's flying under the radar right now you think deserves more of a spotlight?
Flying under the radar, that's tough because they did just win the championship, so it feels like everything kind of is magnified. But maybe just kind of
they're going to break up in 2027.
Yeah, I was going to say, nobody's talking about that. Salary cap, nobody's talking about that. I think maybe people are just overlooking the young players that the Thunder are bringing in that we've talked so much about already. I think there are going to be some games where opposing both teams, yes, but also fan bases are just going to get pissed off because Ajay Mitchell goes for 20 points off the bench. You're just like, what? Who's this kid? Or Nikola Topic comes in and is making big time plays. You're like, my team's been looking for a Nikola Topic for 2 seasons now. Like I think it was Nekias Duncan or somebody similar. Maybe it was Steve Jones. One of them tweeted out, like, you know who the Bucks need to go out and get right now? They need to go and get Ajay Mitchell. They need a point guard, facilitator, and somebody who can score off the bench for them. And it's like the Thunder just have him kind of chilling and can throw him in whenever they need to. They're trying to find minutes for him, you know? Like, I think maybe that's the most underrated aspect is the just the depth that Sam Presti has built.
Do you have anything different on that front, JD?
No, that is it. It was going to be the top of the West improved via transactions. Like Houston got KD, Denver got Cam Johnson, and other depth pieces. Thunder didn't make any moves like that, but the youngest team in the NBA is going to continue to develop and get better, and they'll be still at the top, I think.
So this is a question for the two of you to hash out. You have to narrow down the rotation just to 10 players. I don't care about matchups. Who are the 10 most used players on this team?
I like it.
Oh,
okay,
hell.
Let's go with the original starting 5 to end this season, Silva. So the big 3.
Barnhizer, Ajay Mitchell.
Yeah, Barnhizer and Shea. So we got Shea, Dub, Chet, Lou, and Ihart because they started the double bigs.
Yep. And then you got to go Cason Wallace.
Correct. Alex Caruso.
And then Aaron Wiggins.
That's where it gets interesting. So Alex
Stuff starts getting interesting at 7.
Cason Wallace,
7, which is insane.
Cason Wallace at 7. So now we go Aaron Wiggins. Do we go AJ Mitchell?
I would like to go AJ Mitchell, but there's also Jay Will. Jay Will could be there.
So basically, our last 2 spots: Kenrich Williams, AJ Mitchell.
Have not mentioned Isaiah Joe at this point.
We haven't mentioned Isaiah Joe. And so, and that's the thing. Like, that's the answer to this is Mark's going to rotate those last handful of rotation pieces.
That wasn't the question.
But that wasn't the question. I know. Exactly. Who do we want to go with? Give me AJ.
That's fine. Yeah, I'm cool with that. Give me AJ.
And then we have one more, right? Or was that 10?
So you have your starting 5. You have Cason, Caruso. You threw AJ in there. You put Wiggins, and then didn't you have Jay Will? So that would be 10.
I would like Jay Will in there.
I'm happy with that.
Oh, I love Kenrich Williams so much.
Me too. It sucks.
I do too.
How do we? What is the hardest?
Gosh, he'd be such a Tibbs player. Whoa.
Well,
not anymore.
Traded him to the Knicks last season.
Yeah.
What is the single biggest or JD? What's the hardest rotation decision you think on a night-to-night basis that Mark Daigneault's going to need to make? Whether it's something about their style or more so about is this guy ever really going to get consistent playing time?
It's going to be who's going to be in addition. It's going to be SGA, J-Dub, Chet, and then a lot of times Hartenstein to end games. Who the hell is going to be the other guy? Is it going to be? There's so many good options. It could be Caruso. It could be Dort. It could be Cason Wallace.
Correct.
If you need more playmaking, maybe you get Nuts and throw Topic in there. It's like, who's the other guard? Who's the other guard? It's kind of my biggest question.
Which is funny because that is a question of what would be their most used crunch time unit. So how do you round out the 5th spot, Taylor? If it's who do you think ends up getting the lion's share of that 5th wheel?
I think Silva is spot on. It's probably going to be iHeart. When you look at just the physicality, the way those lineups play together, and just going off the sample size we saw after Chet got healthy again. But the other underrated aspect of this, we all know how important Alex Caruso is to this team and how incredible he is. He was literally a playoff game changer. Maybe as good as Shea was, the best player, most impactful player for the Thunder and the Denver Nuggets 7-game series, second round.
Yeah.
That being said, the reason he was able to play like he did in the playoffs, Dan, which we were complaining about earlier in the regular season, but it was because he wasn't playing in the regular season. I mean, yes, he'd play, but he wasn't playing this is the Celtics. Why aren't we playing him 25 to 26 minutes a game? He only played 20. Well, because guess what? February games against the Celtics don't matter as much in the grand scheme of things as playoff games. And so because of that, I don't think we're going to see Alex Caruso in those closing lineups. They're going to use that as development opportunities sometimes for guys like Cason Wallace. But I think overall, you're right, Silva. It's going to be iHeart.
Look, Taylor, you and Jacob were right. We actually had our biggest disagreement in quotes on the pod last year was I insisted Alex Caruso was going to close more games than Isaiah Hartenstein. I said, or play more minutes than Isaiah Hartenstein. Now the injury, Hartenstein's availability, and then what happens in the playoffs. But Alex Caruso I underrated or underestimated how much they were going to try and preserve him for the postseason stretch, and that's kind of like a really big oversight in hindsight because they had the depth. We know Alex Caruso's injury history. It makes all the sense in the world for them to do that. I feel
stupid because I was on the podcast, I was on Twitter, tweeting, why are you play Alex Caruso more? He's healthy. He's so impactful. Why aren't you playing him more? We want to see these lineups together. And it's oh, yeah, because you're going to play him 30 minutes or 26, 27, 28 minutes per game in the playoffs.
JD, I have this theory that your answer to this next question will tell us a lot about who you are as a human being. So what is the weirdo lineup you want Mark Daigneault to try this year?
Oh, wow. That's a fun question. Okay. Any weirdo lineup has to have Chet at center.
Or point guard. Lineup, Chet at center.
I know.
Where's Barnhizer? You had Barnhizer there before.
Barnhizer could be there. We could, and I'm going to go Chet. I'm going to go Topic in a weirdo lineup. I'm going to go J-Dub. Shea cannot be in my weirdo lineup. Who else is going to be there? Chet, Topic, J-Dub.
Oh, sorry.
What's going to get? Maybe I'll throw... No. I'm going to throw Barnhizer in there for the hell of it. He can be our...
I feel like you're getting to the closing unit of the 2029 Thunder title team.
You're kind of right. You're kind of right. And then
Shea's moved back to Toronto to finish his career after 3 rings.
And then Isaiah Joe. Will we ever see that lineup? If we do, someone give me a call because I cannot miss that. But Topic, Isaiah Joe, J-Dub, Brooks Barnhizer, and Chet. That is the most psychotic.
That is weird. Once you put Chet at center, I was concerned. But
yep. That was the most psychotic
I now know enough
lineup
to know that you're a good person. So
Thank
nice
you.
job answering the question. Taylor, What would your pick be?
This one's easy for me. And shout out to Jacob as well. Give him another shout out on this podcast. We love this equivalent. We call it the equivalent of the Thunder's death lineup. So you got Lou Dort, you got J-Dub, probably Shea, Cason Wallace, Alex Caruso. All defense.
Jesus Christ.
Just perimeter defenders, crazy, 1 through 5, small ball, no Chet. We're just going out there and we're just hounding you for like 10 minutes. Just transition basketball.
I think mine would. Oh my God, the fact that the Thunder just have these lineups is insane.
It is.
I want to see J-Dub at the 5 with, like, I guess plus kids. I'll call it, even though J-Dub is a kid himself. So give me Ajay Mitchell. Give me J-Dub younger than Ajay Mitchell? No, probably not. Might be.
They're close to the same age. That's a good point.
But J-Dub, Ajay Mitchell, Barnhizer, Topic, and I guess let me go Cason Wallace there. So that's what I want to see. Who's the tallest player?
That's really
fun. Topic, the tallest player in that unit, maybe.
Yeah.
So I want to see that. That's the fuck you. Look how deep and versatile we are lineup.
Yeah.
That's also the fuck you outcome lineup because I don't know what that looks like, on the glass.
Yeah, this is we're resting Chet and Ihart tonight because we can lineup.
We're resting not only.
We don't even need a center.
Yeah, no, Kenrich Williams is out too, and Jay Will he's gonna get a little bit of a break. So before I get you guys to make some predictions, is there anything else about this team we haven't discussed that you think warrants conversation?
Oh man,
I know.
We spent very little time on Shea, but we're just kind of at the. You want to talk about why he takes too many free throws and how the Thunder are free throw merchants, even though they were bottom 10 in free throw attempt rate last year?
Right. My only thing is I hope people appreciate SGA more. It does feel like a lot of the Shea conversation in the mainstream was clouded by the free throw stuff, which I always thought was stupid.
Yeah.
But I mean, look at what he did last year. Admire the player that's in front of you. All the hoopers, all the Kobe lovers, the D Wade lovers. You should love this guy. You should love this guy. He plays the same way that they did. He plays a very mid-2000s style of ball.
Unethical style of basketball.
Oh, no, he plays an unethical style of ball, but he's just a bucket getter. And weirdly, the biggest shot in the arm for his PR was that Brett Usher video that had like 60K likes. It was just a montage of Shea like getting buckets. And all the replies on there were like, This
looks like Kobe.
This guy looks amazing. I've never realized he was this good. And it was just a random video in like late July, I think, that Brett Usher on Twitter posted. It was like, yeah, he's been doing this all year, guys. I don't know why you're just now realizing this.
Right.
But
I think in a similar vein, Silva, the Thunder's defense as well. Those were the two things you heard so much from opposing fan bases. They just hound you and they get away with all these fouls and you just can't even play against them because it's so poorly officiated. And like, look, a lot of this comes down to even bigger picture, like even outside of sports, which we don't have to dive down that rabbit hole or we'll be here another 3 hours. But just the reactions.
Hold on, let me get our fact checker. Oh, wait,
yeah, that's right.
Lay those guys off. Sorry.
Grant's on vacation.
Yeah.
I think that's just the primary like go-to innate reaction to things these days, right? Try and tear something good down because my team isn't this good or I want this. I want my team to win, whatever it may be. Just appreciate greatness for what it is, not the Thunder. Like I understand the league is in a weird situation, but there's never been more talent in the NBA before. Like think about all the incredible people you've had. And then somehow he got stuck with us, Dan, doing your previews.
You guys are great. I'm going to meet all of you at one point. What have we got? I got 80% of the uncontested people.
Yeah, that's right. There. We'll have Justin on next year. We'll make it happen. Yeah. Just appreciate it for what it is. But I think you're exactly right, Silva, with SGA. And it makes me think of the Thunder's defense as well.
And I'm not saying this just because you guys are on the pod. I dismiss when fan bases complain about my star isn't getting enough calls throughout the season. The game was rigged because it's just like I've tried to engage sometimes. People in our Discord know this. Like there's a running bit with it, but just maybe there's at some point there are going to be lopsided whistles in games, but I just don't. That is not why your team is where they are because Zion Williamson is refereed differently than everybody else, or Cade Cunningham is refereed differently. Like it's just I don't have the patience for that stuff. So the complaining about the Thunder defense, or the complaining about, and especially with like the team in general, where it's just look at where they are in free throw attempt rate. So it's not just the Thunder. If you're going to talk about like, I'll be equally dismissive of like if you're complaining about like Jokic and like he's bleeding on his arms, you can just say he wasn't fouled or whatever. Like I don't know what to tell you. So predictions time. Where do you see this team? Landing in the West really isn't fun unless you guys think that they're just going to punt on the regular season altogether. How many games do you think they win this year?
I would pick. I don't think they win 68 again. That's pretty tough. If they do,
coward.
Jesus. I think it's between 62 and 65, probably, if I had to guess.
Where are you at, Taylor?
That's kind of where I lean as well, Silva, in the sense I don't think they're going to hit 68 wins. On the contrary, like playing devil's advocate, if Nick Crane were here with us, as he would be doing, you could argue that if the Thunder have full health, I mean, they're one of the statistically one of the most injured teams last year during the regular season.
It's true.
If they have full health and these guys are taking leaps like we say they should be, like, why couldn't they surpass 68 wins? And I understand that. The reason I agree with Silva, I'm siding with Silva, thinking it's closer to the 60, 62 wins. And still probably leading the Western Conference in the 1 seed. I know you have that here as well. The reason I think that's because of what we talked about with earlier with balancing these young players and getting them reps. You have a championship contender. You have guys like Alex Caruso who are kind of a iHeart, who are kind of finished projects to an extent. You want to keep them healthy long term. Even guys like Chet, who you just want to preserve until the playoffs, even if he doesn't have a serious injury. Like you said, Dan, like he's smaller. He's not afraid of contact. He's going to be battling down low for 82 games. It makes sense to rest him for 10 of those games and try and keep him fresh, or help him kind of get through some nagging ankle injuries, whatever it may be. For all those reasons, I'm with you, Silva. I think it'll be closer in that like low 60s range.
Silva, and this is a fun question to ask you guys, because every team I asked this for in the West of what's a playoff matchup that is either most concerning or fascinating to you, I just say non-Thunder division. I don't have to say that to you two. So Silva, what is it? And this one's fun too, because the Nuggets proved a lot to me going up against the Thunder last year. But then like you look at what Houston kind of did, and just like the West at the top is still really stacked. So who do you view as either, whether it's again from the perspective of the most concerning or just most fascinating playoff matchup?
Denver, I still wake up in a cold sweat at night thinking about playing against Jokic. So
like that
Denver,
Gatorade commercial with D-Wade and LeBron.
yeah, it's that. Denver's up there for me, dude. I mean, Jokic just is unbelievable. I already had a ton of respect for Jokic, but watching him play against a defense as good as the Thunder's, it's like he still is generating an open look on every single possession somehow. It's them. Houston will be interesting. I think Houston's defense could give us some trouble. They have They
might try to put Chet in the hospital.
They might. That's the thing. It's like they have a lot of beefy dudes there. They have like a nice combination of your Amen Thompsons, the hyper athletic, can guard SGA as well as anyone. And they have like your bruising Şengün, Steven Adams types. And both of those, I think, against the Thunder's more frail players, I'll say, like a Chet, could cause some issues. If there was a third team, it's not the Timberwolves. I don't think
that's what I'm looking at.
It's not the Timberwolves.
Is it the Lakers?
I don't know, man. I don't really believe.
Here we go.
Now I know, right?
You guys and your Lakers exceptionalism.
I know. I don't really believe in that. I mean, those are the. It's
us and our big market teams. Bias.
Yeah. Honestly, the team that you didn't mention, I think Houston or Denver, the natural answers. I don't know what they're going to look like at this point. I assume they're going to look the same and that everyone's going to play if they're healthy. But the Clippers, like they can run some interesting front courts now.
Yeah.
Like because of John Collins, Zubac, who's probably the most underrated player in the NBA of the past half decade.
He's amazing.
Absolutely.
And then having Brook Lopez there too. So that's the like if you tell me Kawhi is healthy and still allowed to play.
But Dan, it's not just Kawhi. I mean, this is like the nursing home for NBA players right now. Like all these guys have to stay healthy.
2021 is so excited right now.
Yeah. Oh my God. Gosh, they're a championship contender at that. Right.
I think they could be. I think they're like one of the 4 best teams in the West at full strength. Like the depth is there.
Yeah.
When I started to think about it, my first inclination was they lean too far into offense. But then I started going through their bench, and I'm just like Derek Jones Jr., Brook Lopez.
Chris
like
Dunn, I think, still there.
Chris Dunn. And so I don't know how much those guys are going to play, but like they have plenty of defense still. So I think this team, if it's healthy, they would be an interesting matchup. But I think you both hit it with Denver. Is probably the team that I'm most interested in.
Absolutely.
And last year, my answer would have been my answer last year would have included the Lakers. It would have included the Timberwolves, the Warriors,
and the Mavericks.
Just because those are teams that if you're a young team and you're playing against LeBron or Steph or Ant in that defense, you're afraid of what's going to happen. But last playoffs kind of showed me they can problem solve enough to where those guys aren't quite as scary.
And then the Timberwolves lose and they don't really, they re-sign like Naz Reid and Julius Randle, but they don't really make significant improvements. So that's why I think
I don't think they're going to miss that much. I think Terrence Shannon Jr. is going to be ready. Maybe they'll miss his shooting if that's, but like Nas shooting hasn't really translated to the playoffs just yet. You mentioned Dallas would be interesting. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but like their point guard might be bigger than OKC center at one point. Like if you have Flag as your point guard and you're going to run small as the Thunder, that would be.
Oh my gosh, guys! Speaking of sicko lineups, can you imagine Cooper and Chet guarding each other full court, like both running point of tag?
Would love that. Dallas fans, we see Dallas fans a lot still kind of living in the embers of the Luka team they were like our biggest rival back then, and they're still like PJ Washington owns you, and they still kind of think they can compete. And Dallas defensively, yes, but offensively, I just don't know. You're starting.
You need Anthony Davis to want to play center, so like that's already. Right. And then Kyrie's hurt. I don't know what to make of that team other than they're huge, and I think they'll be really good defensively.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun again. Like they have Cooper. They'll be fun. But yeah,
this is an interesting question to ask you guys from your perspective. Who's the most to you menacing team in the Eastern Conference? Like the Thunder in the finals. Who do you want to face the least coming out of the East?
This year is so weird in the Eastern Conference with the Celtics being banged up with Tatum and. Mm-hmm. Oh man,
I don't want to go to MSG and play basketball in the playoffs. I was
going to say, is it the Knicks?
I don't want to go to MSG.
I think if you're trying to placate the host, that's the answer. I kind of wonder if the actual answer is Orlando.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
They feel like the Thunder from like 2 years ago. They're about to make a really big leap.
Mm-hmm.
So you could go the whole maybe they're not ready factor because I really like Cleveland. I think they're going to be my pick to come out of the East.
Yep.
But just like I talked about this with Justin Rowan. I talked about this with Philip Rossman-Reich, who covers the Magic.
Yep.
Like you just feel Orlando. They could lose a series 4-0, and you might come out of it limping still.
Yeah, they did that to Boston last year.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Are you able to tell our listeners, watchers, subscribers, audience where they can find you guys and all the work that you do? We'll begin again with you, Mr. Silva.
Yes, you can find me at JD_Silva on Twitter. You can find the Uncontested Twitter. What the hell is Taylor? What the hell is our at _ the Uncontested?
At the _Uncontested. Boom.
Yep. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter, of course. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We have a Patreon where you get access to bonus episodes. Sometimes it's like non-basketball related mailbag questions, which are always fun. Sometimes it's draft breakdowns. You also get access to our Discord where we talk about basketball, or we have it's like every week one of our subscribers is like, can we have a channel for this? And it's like, now we have a fishing channel. And
Silva's go-to is the outdoor channel. He always
we have an outdoors
like
channel.
An inside joke now.
Yeah, we have a good.
It is a lot of fun. And hey, so speaking of that, plugging both the Patreon, but also our good friends over here at HardwoodKnocks. Like Dan said, we've known each other since the very, very early Blue Wire days when we both joined, kind of when the network was just starting. Kevin Jones just started everything, started doing collabs and stuff. We long overdue for us to get either Dan, Grant, or hopefully both on, and was thinking it'd be kind of cool maybe to do something where we record like a podcast like this. We drop the first part in front of the paywall, just on a normal distribution, and then maybe for the Patreon subscribers have a little bonus content with Dan and Grant. So hopefully you guys will be seeing them on our pod as well.
Yeah, hopefully, but I'm definitely in. Hopefully we'll be able to work out with Grant. You guys do great work. The links to their podcast, the open feed, as well as the Patreon will be in our podcast and YouTube description. Go in there and talk about fishing. There's every year, which is kind of a tradition we just started in our Discord. We identify one team where that's not going to be about the actual team because they're either so bad or just they're going nowhere. So last year it was the Pelicans, became the movies and
that
TV
was
shows.
Perfect.
Yeah. This year it's the Celtics. It was chosen to be the Celtics. So that's what you can get in our Discord is we purposely bully one fan base apparently, or we don't bully, we just exo-communicate them from existence. Apparently,
we're going to talk about your team.
Yeah, right.
That's awesome.
You guys do great work at the Uncontested. So again, everybody, if you're not already and listening to this and have made it this far, my God, go subscribe already. Thank you guys for being so generous with your time as always. And as you know by now, I will be pestering you again in the future.